Vinted is pretty much completely banned relisting. However, eBay is the complete opposite, and this could completely change how you run your reselling business. If you're new here, my name is Gemma, and me and my fiance James run a reselling business called House of Jamz, where we sell luxury and vintage items. So you may have noticed that at the end of last year, I think it was September, Vinted Vinted updated their terms and conditions. And one of the major changes that they made with their platform was that they changed the rules around relisting. So I'll talk about this in another video that we put out a little while ago. So if you want to sort of a bit more in depth about this, you can maybe go and watch that. I'll leave it linked below. However, it pretty much said that instead of before, if you what you could normally do is you could delete a listing and then relist the same item again to try and boost your item in Vinted's algorithm, which obviously the way Vinted's algorithm works, newer, fresher listings get a little bit of a bump. They get put to the top of the pile, so to speak, and obviously it means that you get more views, you get a little bit more activity on your item. So before, one of the sort of strategies that I used to use, quite a lot of people on Vinted used to use, was if listings had been sitting for a little while, they would delete their listing and then, you know, just relist the same item to give it a little bit of a boost. However, Vinted, as I said, has changed their terms and conditions along with a few other things to watch out for, and now this is pretty much, it's a bit of a grey area actually, because it says that multiple, if I remember the wording of it, multiple deleting and relisting is not allowed. I think if you've maybe got something up for a good few months and it's not had any traction or had any, you know, like any activity on it, and you delete that and relist it, I don't think you're going to get banned or get in trouble. But I think if you're doing it consistently and it's always the same items, I think there you can run the risk of flagging Vinted and potentially getting your account suspended or getting warnings and things like that, or restricted in some way. And obviously if this is, you know, if you make money from doing this, that is something that you really, really don't want. So obviously this is very disappointing from, you know, not just a reseller point of view, but even just if you're selling, you know, second-hand items, because you would think that Vinted would want you to sell something, even if it meant that you had to relist it and then, you know, boost it give it a little bit of a boost in the algorithm. You would think that they would want you to sell your items, because whenever you sell something, they make a bit of money. So I find it very confusing. So obviously, as I mentioned before, this isn't great for if you do run a business, a reselling business, or even just selling things on Vinted, because it means there's no way to kind of give your items a little bit of a boost without running the risk of getting your account restricted in some way. So as I said, it's very limiting for, you know, if you're a business. So obviously after that situation, I've been very reluctant to relist anything on Vinted, and I've kind of stopped doing it. So one of the things that they do suggest, so I'm going to mention this just now, just in case, you know, we're not completely stuck as, you know, resellers and things like that, is there is a few things that you can do. So according to Vinted, if you go in and if you say update the title of your item, so maybe add in a few different keywords, if you update the description, if you maybe change the price slightly, or if you keep the same listing, so you're not taking it down, you're keeping the same listing, and maybe change the photos, or even change your primary photo, so maybe switching it to a different one, all of these things supposedly, according to Vinted, boost your listing in the algorithm. So I have been trying this out myself with a few of my own listings. Instead of deleting them, I've been going in, I've been tweaking things just to see if it gives it a little bit of a boost, if you get a little, you know, bit more views, favourites and things like that. So far, I'm not 100% convinced that it's actually making any difference. However, from a buyer point of view, when I have been looking on Vinted at things that I'm interested in, I've been looking at when it's been listed, like if something pops up on my feed, and, you know, sort of how many favourites and things that they've had. And I have been pleasantly surprised, because things have come up on my feed as a buyer where they've been listed a few months ago, but it does say on it that it was updated like within the last few days. So from a buying point of view, for that seller who was selling that thing, there is obviously something in it. So maybe just we've not seen results yet, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just luck that I've seen their item, I don't know. So yeah, Not totally sure on that yet, but obviously I will keep you updated if I do notice that you don't have to relist something, because obviously going in and just tweaking it a little bit is much easier, much less of your time than having to completely relist. So obviously, since relisting on Vinted is pretty much a no-go for us just now until we kind of figure out what's going on, I was actually very pleasantly surprised to see that eBay is the complete opposite. They actually encourage you to relist things. So with my research, just to make sure that we're definitely allowed to do this, they said that when I was looking on their website and things like that, it pretty much says that after, you know, your item's been sitting for a little bit of a while, you've not had many views, you've maybe not had very many watchers or much activity, that they do actually suggest to delete the item and then relist it. They actually have a button on sort of beside the item where it says relist similar item or something like that, so you can actually duplicate the listing, but it's still coming up as technically a new listing. It's not like just one that you've edited, so they even have a button to make it easier. So eBay, as I said, complete opposite, but then obviously they've been doing this for a lot longer than Vinted. So some of the things that eBay suggests to do, as I mentioned before, is deleting your old listing. They actually said which I thought was quite quick, very different again compared to Vinted. Pretty sure when I was looking at Vinted, and it did kind of say when to think about tweaking your listing or when to think about potentially deleting it, and you know, refreshing it and things like that. Pretty sure it said to leave it for like a couple of weeks or even like 90 days, or like it was either a couple of weeks. I read somewhere else like a month, and I read somewhere else like 90 days. I've seen like quite a lot of different numbers, but all of them are really, really long. Whereas with eBay, pretty sure it says, I think it was on their website, it did say leave it for a couple of weeks. However, other things that I've seen, it's actually said to have a little look at refreshing listings after 5 to 7 days. So it's a lot, you know, they're wanting you to be a lot more active on there. So the advice from eBay is that if you are looking at a listing and you've not had much activity on it after say a week or so not very many views, no watchers, you know, nobody's really like showing much interest on it. Again, the same thing is if you delete your listing, relist it, and basically they said very similar advice to Vinted. So look at your title, maybe tweak your title a little bit, use different keywords, tweak your description, again, using different keywords. You could potentially tweak the price a little bit, so maybe lower it a little bit, just to kind of entice a few more buyers. Change your main photo. So not change all your photos, just change your primary photo, just so that it's different. And then eBay actually said that every time that you go onto your eBay account and there's activity from your side, so you're going in, you're tweaking listings, you're maybe relisting and things like that, supposedly it boosts your listings in the algorithm. So every time you go in and do something to sort of, you know, try and improve your store, you get a little bit of an algorithm boost, which, you know, is fantastic. So obviously some of the benefits from doing this, from going into eBay and consistently managing your listings, refreshing them and things like that, is that hopefully you'll get more sales. Hopefully as well, you will obviously have a better use of your time, because you're not going in and maybe wasting your time just waiting on something to sell. You're able to sell things a lot quicker, and obviously you've got a, you know, quicker turnover of stock as well, which means you're making more money, which means you can then go out and reinvest it quicker into your business. So there's definitely a lot of benefits from, you know, doing this. So after discovering this, and after discovering, you know, that eBay actually actively encourages relisting, we have actually decided to completely move our attention, not completely away from Vinted, but we are now much more focused on eBay. So our latest lot of stock, you know, we've listed it on eBay and on Vinted and a little bit on Depop. And I have to say, previously, Vinted was our main platform. So Vinted was, you know, where we got most of our sales. It was where, you know, we sold most things. We occasionally sold something on eBay, but not that often. I just kind of felt like it was maybe at that point it was a little bit too, I don't know, I felt like we were too new, or we didn't have the visibility and things like that. So I was kind of more concentrating obviously on developing, you know, Vinted and make sure we were getting good reviews and things there. However, since this change with the relisting rule, we have completely changed our attention, and now we are, you know, still listing things on Vinted, but we are putting much more time and effort into eBay. So eBay is where I'm putting my effort in to, you know, make sure that my listing titles are good, that the descriptions are good, that I'm refreshing the pictures, that I'm rotating the pictures round so that I'm generating a bit more interest, that I'm relisting if I need to. And I have to say, we have gotten so much more sales on eBay in the past kind of week or so since we've sort of done this than Vinted. So don't know if it's a coincidence. I don't know if it's maybe the type of stock we're selling is just maybe a little bit more desirable on eBay. I'm not sure if it's the relisting thing, whatever it is, or if it is because we are putting a lot more time and effort into eBay. So now we're on the site a lot more and we're getting rewarded for it. You know what I mean? So I'm not totally sure if that definitely is what it is, but I have to say, out of eBay and Vinted, if you're looking to kind of make sure that you can do everything you possibly can to try and maximise the visibility on your listings, to try and sell as many things as possible, I would definitely suggest going down eBay. And even if you've not got an eBay store, I would definitely suggest it's worth opening one just because of these changes in these rules. So if you found this video useful or interesting, make sure and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos, and I will see you in our next one. Bye!